Let me start the recording. It is 7:05. We'll get started. Some people may come in late. That's fine. They'll just catch up as we go along. So tonight's topic, 5 features of Word you're probably not using, but probably should be, based on suggestion from one of my friends who's not in the class. I'm kind of surprised by that. This was his suggestion. I'm going to go through 5 things that I think you should be using. I drafted a much larger list, and that may be fodder for future sessions. I've got that on one of the slides already. So we might do this again at another time with 5 other features I think you should be using. I figure we'll try to spend about 10 minutes on each. 5 features, 10 minutes each, 50 minutes, time for questions, blah, blah, blah. So let's talk a little bit about all the features that we've got in Word. Well, you know, if you've used Word at all in the last 30 years, you'll know that Word literally has hundreds of features. I was going to do a little web query and I forgot to find out how many there actually are, whether it's in the hundreds or the thousands. But, you know, to be perfectly honest, Word's got a lot of features. There's a lot of stuff packed into there. And of course, some of these things are very well known because we've been using them for years, and others, well, maybe you're not too familiar with them. And just because you don't know a feature doesn't mean it's necessarily new. There are many things, I think, and not just in Word, but in all of the Office products. I think there's a lot of features that have been in there for years and you just don't know they're there. And that's part of why I exist, is to kind of teach you those things. So again, maybe hopefully tonight we're gonna hit some of those types of things. I came across this interesting statistic, gosh, years ago when I started my trading career. So that's going to be back in Julianne's days, because Julianne and I worked together years ago, back when Abrion and PSG years. But I remember this, and I don't remember the exact number, but this was definitely a true statement at the time, is that Microsoft often gets requests for new features in its products, and oftentimes those new feature requests are something that's already in the product. Okay, I forget the statistic. It was something, it was like over 50%, but there was just an obnoxious number of requests that they get for features and things for a product to do that's actually already in there. And that just means that we've got a problem with discoverability. That just means it's really hard to find, might be hard to find the feature, even know that it exists or what it's called. So anyways, in looking at some of these features, and I kind of drafted a scribbled down my list of things I thought that would be good. And then looking about the time I had, I said, you know what, okay, here's 5 of these things that I think, and they're a mix of old and new things. So there are 5 features I think you'll hopefully find valuable. Some of these you may actually be familiar with, or maybe you've heard them. Maybe you're familiar with it, but maybe you're not using them to their full potential. So keep an open mind on some of these. So yes, I already said this. They're a mix of old and new. It was a little tough to narrow down the list. Like I said, my original list had about 15 of them on there. So I may yet do a session in another month or so, who knows, with 5 more features, the sequel. Certainly fodder for future sessions. So what are the 5? I had them listed on the invite, and the 5 features that I'd like to spend the next 50, 45 minutes taking a look at are these 5. And they are section breaks, color schemes, AutoCorrect, building blocks, and the Office Clipboard. We've got a mix here. Some of these things have been in the product for literally eons. Some of these things are fairly new. All right, so let's start off with that first one. Now, for each of these, as we go through this tonight, I'm going to kind of follow the same format. I'm going to describe the feature, why it's valuable, and where you can find it in the product, and then I'll do a demonstration of it. So we're just going to kind of rinse and repeat 5 times over here as far as each of these features. So let's talk about section breaks first. What are section breaks? Well, it's kind of one of those features that the name really does describe what it does. And that is, just like the name sounds, section breaks literally break your document up into definable sections. Okay, you know, I hate using the words in the definition. a little bit more about them is that you can have lots of sections in your document. If you don't put these in your document, technically you already have one section in your document. You can, however, put multiple sections in your document. Now, sections aren't chapters or units. Rather, they are a definable area of a document where you can have different formatting in that area. And a section can be just part of a page, or a section can span multiple pages. So sections can be a lot of different sizes. They can be very small, maybe only a few lines worth of text. Maybe that defines a section. Or maybe the section is pages and pages and pages and pages long. You define where those section breaks are, okay? Now, in the product, in Microsoft Word, we have 4 types of section breaks. And they are next page, continuous, even page, and odd page. And it's just like they sound. If I put a section break in my document and I put in the type called next page, that means it's going to break the section and it's going to start the next section on the next page. Okay? A continuous section break is going to be for a section break that might happen mid-page, but you don't want to do a new page. So a continuous section break creates a new section but doesn't create a new page. Where would you want to use something like that? We'll do a demonstration. Often that's if you want to do maybe 2 or 3 column formatting just for a part of the document. And then we've got even page and odd page. They're very similar to next page, but just like they sound, they will kick you to the next iteration of that type of page. So if I do an even page section break, it's going to break the section and start the new section on the next even page. Okay, so if I'm on page 4 and I break the section, the next section is going to start on page 6 because that's the next even page. But if I happen to be on page 5 and I do an even page break, well, then it's just going to go on to page 6. You're like, well, why not just make that a next page? Well, maybe you want to end all your chapters on even pages because that's the way you want certain things to start. It's a formatting thing. Okay, and odd page is basically the same as even page, just, odds. So why would you want to break your document into sections in the first place if it really is nothing to do with chapters or units in a document? And the real reality of section breaks is that section breaks let me stumble over that word again. Sections primarily allow for different formatting within a single document. So a section is a definable area of a document. And again, that area can be part of a page or it can be multiple pages. And within that section, you can have different formatting than maybe another section. And some of the different formatting that you could possibly have is maybe you'll have columns. So maybe part of your document is single column, and then you want to go 2 column for a while, and then you want to go back to a single column. Or maybe you want to have different headers and footers. That's a real big one when you are producing documents that might actually have chapters and units, and you might want to have the name of the chapter in the header. You have to do that with sections. And there's another throwback to me and Julianne's days about back in PSG and Abrion. A lot of our documents, that's where I learned it way back when, is how to create those use sections so we can have different headers and footers for the different chapters. Different margins, different paper sizes, different page orientation. Maybe as my document is going along, I need to have one page that is turned landscape instead of portrait because I need to put a chart on it. The way to do that is with a section break. Okay, so we'll demonstrate some of this stuff. So that's why you should use them. So where do you find them? And again, I'll show you because I'm going to go through the example, but I've got the slide in there so that you have it. So let's go to a document. And let me turn this off, and let's turn that off for right now. So I've got a sample document here that I've used for other things going on, and you can see here that it's got a bunch of text in it. The breaks, section breaks, are found on the Insert tab. Okay, and in the Insert tab, Layout. On the Layout tab. On the Layout tab in the Page Setup group, there's a section here called, there's a drop-down menu here called Breaks. We're not going to talk about page breaks tonight, but in section breaks, we've got next page, continuous, even, and odd. And it's just like it sounds. So for instance, right here, maybe, let's see here, we've got an introduction. Okay, and then there's some stuff about spices here. So maybe, let me delete what I have. Let's see what kind of break is here already. Okay, yeah, there's just a regular page break. Oh, excuse me. Maybe I want this stuff about bay leaf and all the spices that are coming up here to be its own section, and it starts on a next page. So I'm going to go to Layout, click on Breaks, and I'm going to say Next Page. And you'll notice that bay leaf now jumps down to the next page, and we've got this up here. So now I've got a section here. Let me turn on my section indicators. There we go. So I can see if I look down in my status bar, I can see this is section 1. And this is section 2. Oh, and by the way, I'm demonstrating on Office 2016, but this is common to all the Office applications. Okay. Now, just doing a next page section break doesn't really do anything overly exciting at this point. But again, the point of section breaks is that I can format, especially from a page layout, I can format each section differently. And where we would really see that is if we went to the Page Setup dialog box expander. So let me click on Page Setup and open that dialog box expander sometime today. There it goes. And you'll notice, yeah, you've probably seen this before with all the different margins and orientation and paper size and different things about the layout. But if you look very closely at this dialog box down here at the bottom, there's a thing here that says Apply To. And on that drop down, there's the options of this section, this point forward, or the whole document. So for instance, maybe this section with the spices, maybe I want to make this landscape for some reason. So I'm going to go into the page setup and turn this landscape. And now notice that the spice pages are in landscape format because I applied it to that section, but everything before it is still in portrait format. Okay. So section breaks allow me to format those sections differently. Again, it could be different margins. It could be different headers and footers. It could be different page orientation. It could be different page size. That's often how to build an envelope into your document. If back in the old days, well, most of us now just resort to print and labels. But if you want to run an envelope through the printer and you want to have that envelope be part of the document, you do that with a section break. Okay. Now, another way you'd want to use section breaks, let me take this back to this here, and let's go down. I believe it's towards the end of this document. Yes. Okay. Let me do another section break here, and let's fix this here. I've just got there's a regular page break there, but I want to do this as a section break. Next page. Okay. Now, there's a bunch of recipes here, and maybe instead of this being single column, I'd like this to be 2 columns on the page. Okay, so again, I've done a section break. Now I go to Layout, and I say Columns, and I say I want 2 columns. And now you can see, oh, there's the page breaks in there too. I got to get rid of those. Pardon me. Oops, turn that on. And let me eliminate a couple of page breaks. There we go. Now you can see my document is in 2 column format. Okay, and if it went on after that, I could define another section and have, again, different formatting there. Okay, and again, sections can be part of a page. If I only want, let's see here, maybe this section here with the spice trade, maybe I want that to be 2 columns. So what I'm going to do is that's a case for a continuous page break. So right here before the spice trade, I'm going to go Layout, Breaks, Continuous. And then right after it, I'm going to go Layout, Breaks, Continuous. Now, in the middle of this section, I'm going to make that, let's do 3 columns just to be obnoxious. And I have to play with the formatting a little. But there you go. Now, in the middle of this page, oh, something got bumped. Now I've got a little section here that goes 3 columns, and then it goes back to the single column format. And that's a case where I've got a section that only takes up part of a page. Okay, and if you want a section to stay on a page, you would use a continuous section break. Okay, by the way, with all these features, there's lots more to them, but because I've only got about 10 minutes each, I'm giving you a taste. Maybe in future classes, or maybe you'll want to explore more some of the things these features do. So coming back to my slides here, again, just to sum up, why would you want to use them? Sections primarily allow for us to have different formatting within a single document. And that can be columns, headers, margins, paper size, page orientation. Okay. All right, let's move on to our next feature that we want to talk about, and that is color schemes. We're going a whole different area. What is a color scheme? Well, color schemes were introduced as part of something called Office Design Themes, and this was a new feature of Office 2007. Color schemes are basically the lists of colors that you find on any color menu, such as the font color, shape color, table colors, table styles. There's lots of places where you see these sets of colors. All right, just to show you really quick, all right, again, using this same document, anytime I click on any color menu, you'll notice there's a certain set of colors here. And it says theme colors. And most people just don't give this much thought. They go, okay, well, these are just colors that happen to be here, and this is what I'm going to use. And they don't really think about that there are other sets, or even know that there's other sets of colors available here, okay? So let's go back to my slides, there we go. So color schemes are those lists of colors. Why would you want to use a different color scheme? By the way, again, there's a bunch of them in here. It's not just that one. That one happens to be the default, but there are, depending on what you've installed, you may have anywhere from a couple of dozen to a couple hundred of these things. All right. Why would you want to use a different color scheme? Well, variety. It might get tiresome looking at the same basic colors every time in a document. Professional reasons. All of these color schemes that are in here have been designed by professional designers, and they all make sense. If you try to grab colors that you think look good, sometimes they don't. Okay, and that's why we rely on graphics people to teach us how to do that sort of stuff. You can create your own color schemes. That's beyond the scope of what I've got time for tonight. But if you work at a company and there are specific company colors and you need to use those on your documents all the time, you could create your own color scheme that incorporates that plus some other complementary colors. And color schemes, the nice thing about this is it's actually not a feature that's exclusive to Word. It's actually found in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So once I show you how to use it here, you can use it anywhere. So where do we find these? In Word, we find these on the Design tab. And there's a button right here labeled Colors. Now again, and let me go to the page. I have a page here where I drew some shapes for you. Let's come down here. Again, if you've used Office for a while, all of these colors probably look familiar. And I can spot this set of colors a mile away. And I immediately know, yeah, this person doesn't know anything about changing the basic colors. And again, these shapes, if I go to the drawing tools and I look at the shape styles, yes, you see this same set of 7 colors here all the time. And you're like, well, I'd like to do something different. And you'll notice there's really not any other choices there. And then you go through the manual things of shape fills and shape outlines, and it's a lot more cumbersome. The reality is there's tons of these color sets already built in for you. So I'm going to go to the Design tab, click the drop down here for colors, and you'll notice, now I happen to have a lot of these because I happen to be a collector. Hoarder might be another good word for it. But if you look here, I literally have dozens and dozens of different color sets. And let me make this gallery a little smaller. Notice here's what they do. As I hover over these different color sets, I see an example. Now I've drawn these shapes so that you can see what happens when you do this. You'll see that there are going to be other colors available. So let me pick Kilter. Okay. Now, when I go to any color menu, for instance, the color for text, notice there's a whole different set of colors here. Or if I go to the styles for shapes, look, there's a whole different set of colors here than the ones we saw before. Let me do that again. Let me go to all the themes that are here. Let's pick another one. We got one here called Red Dawn. There we go. These are all very red-like. Okay. Again, now if I come back to the Home tab, look at the drop down here. Look, now I've got this whole set of reds. Okay. Yeah, let's pick another one. Some of these color sets use very similar colors. Some of these color sets, oops, I need to click off of there. There we go. Some of these color sets use complementary colors. Again, there's a whole science to this. I don't have time to go through it today. Okay. Here is the standard ones from Office. Okay. If you have the newer version of Office, if you've got 2013 or 2016, these are the standard colors. So here's the old 2007, 2010. Again, I can spot this set a mile away. Here is the 2013, 2016 set. Again, I've seen it enough, I can spot it a mile away. And then here are the other ones. Okay, again, some of them are very complementary. Some of them are, yellow, orange. Just to show you very briefly, if you want to make your own set, you come down here to customize colors. These are all the things that you need to define. There's actually quite a few of these things. It's not just the 6 because there's some other stuff hiding in there. And then you would just give it a name. Okay. Matter of fact, I designed one for my old company. Here's one called LCG. That's who I used to work for, because our colors were actually this blue, this green, and this gray. And then I used, there's tons of color websites out there that can tell you what matching, what colors match certain other colors or are complementary. And by visiting a couple of those websites, I found that this blue and these 2 tans actually are very complementary to this set of colors. And I made a standard set and then passed it around my company so that they could use these same sets of colors in their documents. Okay, so picking these different color designs, these different sets, allow me to have some variety in my documents. Okay, now you cannot use more than one set in a document. So if I pick this set here called Celebration, all right, I cannot have these ones in Celebration and then go later in my document and change it to something else. And again, that gets more into the weeds than I want to get to right now about what this does. But you can only have one color scheme within a document, okay? But here is a key point about these, is that all of these colors, if I come back over to PowerPoint, and actually let me exit out of my presentation just to show you. Over here in PowerPoint, again, if I go to the Design tab, and oops, why can't I go to Design? What's going on here? I need to go back to what happened. Oh, did I stop sharing my screen? Can you guys see my screen? Share screen. Can everybody see my screen? Can someone type in the window and confirm that you can see it? Because I'm having something weird happened here. Okay, all right, it's working. All right, so what's wrong with PowerPoint? Let's go to View, Normal, Design. Oh, I guess I had to be on a different tab. Look, the same sets of colors are over here in PowerPoint. So there they are. All right, sorry about that. Okay, now let's go back into the view that I was in. Reading view. All right, so now let me advance my slides very quickly. So color schemes, take a look at those. And again, these are available in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So once you've got them, you can use them across the product. So this is one that's not exclusive to Word. Again, I like the idea of variety here. To me, this point, why should you use them? It gets tiresome looking at documents that all have the same color scheme. Now, again, within your company, maybe, if you're doing this from a professional standpoint, yeah, maybe you want to have a company color set that you do all of your spreadsheets, PowerPoints, and Word documents in. That might be a good thing. But when you're creating other stuff, you might want a little variety because, variety is the spice of life. Okay. Again, so there's, brief introductions to these things. I could spend, literally on each of these features, I could probably spend an hour. But you don't have that kind of time. All right, next feature, AutoCorrect. What is it? Well, I think most of us would first say AutoCorrect is annoying. Okay, there are things about AutoCorrect we love, and there's things about AutoCorrect we hate. But let's just hold on to that for the moment. Just like the name says, AutoCorrect will correct certain mistakes automatically, as well as make certain changes and substitutions automatically. This feature, I don't even remember when this was implemented, back in probably like Word 95 or even 4.3, sometime along in my long and illustrious trading career. I know it's pretty early on that AutoCorrect came about. And the things that AutoCorrect can do has really grown and changed over the years. It started out as a simple, fixing the word "the" if you typed it TEH. It evolved into being able to draw lines and smiley faces and other special characters and all kinds of stuff. Some of the things are kind of annoying, and I'm going to show you where all that's at, okay? Because it's all in the same place. Why should we use it? Of course, we use it because it saves us time from constantly having to fix common typing errors. And again, there are a bajillion common typing errors that are built into the product already for you. And sometimes it's even 2 words, okay, that are there. What's also really cool about this feature, and you're going to see it when I go in there, is that you can add your own common errors. If there happens to be something that you constantly misspell, excuse me, or have a problem with, you can put it in there, and then Word will take care of it for you. But this brings up an interesting point. You can add your own common errors. You know what? They don't have to be errors. There's a bit of a hack here, okay? And that's this. A handy hack of this feature allows you to save time and repetition by creating what you might want to call substitution shortcuts. Because really, let's think about what AutoCorrect really does. All the product is doing is looking for something and changing it if it's programmed to do so. So for instance, think about the word the. All AutoCorrect is doing is it's waiting for you to type TEH by accident. And if it sees that, it's going to substitute THE. If we take that a step further, what that means is I can say, look for this and substitute that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a mistake. It could be an abbreviation for something that I would just rather type the abbreviation and then have Word put in the full words for it. Or maybe it's a chemical name, and I hate trying to remember how to spell the darn thing, and I don't really want to put it in the dictionary. So maybe I'll just come up with a handy little maybe set of numbers, or just a couple of maybe 3 or 4 characters. And when I type those characters, AutoCorrect will just put in the name of the chemical for me. Okay, so we can essentially kind of hack this feature to save ourselves time on possibly maybe difficult words or things we use over and over again that aren't already in there. So let's take a look at this. All right, and let me just go to a blank page in my document. Right here is fine. So where do we find this? I'm going to go to the File menu, open up the Options, and then I'm going to go to the Proofing tab. And here we go. We've got AutoCorrect options. Now, I could, again, spend 15 minutes in here showing you guys all kinds of stuff. Let me just essentially say that if Word does something automatically while you're typing that you don't want it to do, you'll probably find it here, because there are 5 tabs here about AutoCorrect, Auto Format as you type, Auto Format. Those are the big 3. You don't have to worry about Math AutoCorrect and actions. But quite honestly, a lot of those kind of automatic things like turning ordinals into superscript or fractions or other sorts of fun stuff. By the way, if you are looking for those things, make sure you look at both the Auto Format tab and the Auto Format as you type. I've never quite understood why we've got 2 tabs that do basically the same thing here. In Microsoft's mind, there is some sort of difference here, but in most normal people's, there's not. All right, but let's deal with what I really want to talk about here, and that's this right here, AutoCorrect. Okay, and this is the hack. Remember, the main goal of AutoCorrect is to just replace text as you type. So all AutoCorrect is doing is looking for something and then putting in something else. The list of those somethings is right here, and it's huge. If you scroll through this list in the middle, there are literally hundreds of entries here, everything from different smiley faces to different arrows to, again, all these kinds of different misspellings, typing the words about the and forgetting this space. There's, again, a lot of common ones and maybe a lot of ones that you've never seen, had no idea, but they're all in here. But notice we can create our own. Here is a replace and with. All I got to do is put in the thing that I wanted to look for and what I'd like to substitute. So let's do a couple of examples here. Let's say, instead of writing out my name all the time, maybe I just want to be able to put in my initials. Now, here's one thing about abbreviations. Be careful about putting in abbreviations here, because sometimes you actually want the abbreviation. So what I recommend is adding a number. So for instance, let's talk about my name. And my initials are SAC, but I'm going to add the number 1 to that because sometimes I might actually want SAC in my document for my initials. So I want to differentiate between when I'm using the initials because I want them and when I want Word to actually expand out my name. So I'm going to say, look for SAC1, and every time you see that, instead put in Scott A. Kinsella. And now I'm going to click Add. Okay, and now that's a new substitution in the product. So let me click OK. Let me click OK. So as I'm going along here, I, comma, space, SAC1. Now watch what happens as soon as I hit the space bar. Oops, I did that as capital, so it's got to be capital. There we go. Yeah, if you do it in lowercase, it'll look for either. If you do it in uppercase, it will only do it if it's upper. But notice that. So I, SAC1, oops, 1, being of sound mind. Okay, so there we go. I don't have to type my name out all the time. Or again, maybe there's a complex technical term. Let's go back to File, Options, Proofing, AutoCorrect, Replace. Let me think of a you know what? There's a chemical that's in shampoo. I don't even know why I know this, but methylchloroisothio. So I'm going to call this MCIT, and that's going to be methylchloro. Did I spell that right? Chloroisothiozolinone. Don't even ask. This is an actual chemical. I don't know if I have the spelling right, but this is just for the purpose of the example. So who would want to have to try to remember to spell out methylchloroisothiozolinone all the time, right? So I just want to abbreviate that MCIT. I'm going to add that to the list, say OK, say OK. And now in my document, if I type MCIT and then hit the space bar, voila. Now, I might still need to add that to the dictionary because you notice I got the red wavy underline of it there. But at least I didn't have to try to remember the spelling. So AutoCorrect can be, we'll call it hacked, so that you can add all kinds of different entries to it. Okay? And this is a handy hack. And notice it doesn't even have to be a single word. It could be several words. Let's do another example here. It could be a sequence of words. You see, I did it with my name, but just again for fun. By the way, if you want to take any of these out, just on the flip side, if there is a correction that keeps happening and you don't like it, for instance, maybe like with the smiley faces or other stuff that happens when you're in here, you can select these and delete them. Let's do another one. I'm going to call this one Mary Lamb. Okay, 2 words, and this is going to put in Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. Okay, add it. Say OK. Say OK. And now, Mary Lamb, voila. Put the whole thing in there. I'm not quite sure the limit. I didn't look it up. I'm not sure what the limit on the amount of text is there. But you're going to see I'm going to go through another thing here shortly when we get to something called building blocks, that if you want to do more, I'd recommend using that instead. I think the best hack here of the AutoCorrect feature is this type of stuff. Maybe it's a single word. Maybe it's a couple of words. Maybe it's a filler sentence like this. Maybe you've got some standard small statements that you use in certain letters or certain documents. And again, you just want to make your time a little bit easier. Again, keeping in mind, another example I'd always done with this again is at the NIH we've got the National Institutes of Health. Okay, and maybe I don't always want to have to type that out, but I would not want to put in a shortcut as NIH so that it always expands it out to National Institutes of Health, because maybe sometimes I actually do want NIH in my document. My suggestion is to add a number at the end so that NIH1 is the thing that expands out to National Institutes of Health. Or again, looking at my initials, sometimes I might actually want SAC, but if I wanted to expand out to my actual name, I would do SAC1. By the way, the AutoCorrect features don't kick in until you hit the space bar. So notice here, if I do type, let me do Mary Lamb again, okay? Notice nothing happens here because AutoCorrect isn't going to do its thing until you hit the space bar, because maybe I don't want it to AutoCorrect yet. But as soon as I hit the space bar, voila, there I get the whole thing. So AutoCorrect kicks in after you hit the space bar. Okay? So there's a clever little hack of that. Hopefully you'll find that clever. All right, let me delete all that sort of stuff. All right, so File, Options, Proofing tab, AutoCorrect Options button. All right, we're keeping on track here. We got about 20 minutes to go, and I got 2 more features, so we're doing good. Now, let's take this a step further, okay? And that is with the AutoCorrect, we were hacking the features to substitute words, but now we've also got something called building blocks, and I just noticed I forgot to finish this slide. Oops. What are they? Well, they were introduced in Office 2000, and I don't remember. I think it was Office 2010, so I apologize there. I'm pretty sure they were introduced in Office 2010, but I was going to look that up, and I just realized I forgot to fill that in. So what are they? Well, let's think of them this way. Building blocks are kind of one step above the AutoCorrect hack that I just showed you, but they're one step below a full template. So what this is that the AutoCorrect hack that I just kind of showed you is that if I want to kind of reuse or throw in a few words all the time, okay, and I want to reuse that. Templates, which we should be familiar with, are often documents that have a lot of stuff done for us already, and then we just got to fill them in. So that's usually some sort of entire document. Building blocks fill that space in between, where maybe I need something that's reusable, that's more than a few words, but I don't need it to be the entire document. Okay? So we call this a content block or a building block. Building blocks are some sort of content that I can use over and over and over again. You can create your own, and there are lots of these built in. Okay, it just so happens that again, starting with Office 2010, you might have noticed in the product that when you start to create page numbers or headers and footers or other certain types of items in a document, there were all these pre-made ones. They didn't have those there before. And the reality of what the product is doing is those are just building blocks, okay? Is that these 9 things that I've listed here: bibliographies, cover pages, footers, headers, page numbers, tables of contents, just regular tables, text boxes, and watermarks. There are pre-built options in the product for all of those. And guess what? They all happen to just be building blocks. That's all they did. Okay? So you can use the ones that are built in, and you can create your own, and you can either put them in these different galleries. For instance, I could create my own footer building block, or I can just create a content building block that's just going to insert into a document. Okay? So why would you want to use these? Well, here we are back to the old saves time. And that is that a building block gives me a repeatable and reusable block of content that I can use in documents without having to reinvent the wheel all the time. And again, they can be something simple. Maybe it's just a few lines of text with certain formatting. That's also the advantage that building blocks, as you're going to see, have over the AutoCorrect hack. That AutoCorrect hack just does text. But we can get into doing all kinds of formatting. Building blocks can store formatting and shapes and pictures and all kinds of stuff. So they save us time by creating repeatable and reusable items. You know what? They're just like Legos, okay? They can be professional. Again, Microsoft has built a lot of these into the product for you already so that you don't have to spend all the time figuring out how to make a call-out text box in your document. You know what? They've built a bunch of them for you. They look professional. You put one of the building blocks in there and boom, you're ready to go. And again, third, you can create your own building blocks. So if there is repeatable content or something that you use over and over again, and it's got formatting and pictures and other sorts of stuff, you can, cat's trying to crawl on me, you can create your own of these. All right, so first, where can you find them? Well, that's a little bit of a conflicting thing because, again, they're already in the product in lots of places, but I'll show you where the organizer is. Now, first off, let me just say, yes, you can find these in lots of places. For instance, if I was up in the header of my document and I'm trying to create a header, notice I'm in the header and footers, and I've got buttons here for header and footer and page numbers. When I click on the header button, notice there's a bunch of built-in options. These are all building blocks. That's where these came from. Okay, same thing with footers. If I click here, this gallery of sample footers are all just footers from building blocks. That's all these are. Okay, and again, looking back at my slide, go back a couple of slides here. There are 9 basic categories of these things, and there are more, but these are the 9 basic ones that you'll run into. Okay, now let's find where they're actually hiding, where they're organized. Let me get out of here. And where are these located? Well, under the Insert tab, all the way over here in the group called Text, one of these buttons here is labeled Quick Parts. And again, there's lots of fun stuff in here. I could do a whole class on auto text and whatnot, but there is something here called the Building Blocks Organizer. So I'm going to go to that and look here. Here are all of the building blocks that are built into the product. And you can see here that there is a category and a gallery. That is where I'd find these things. So again, if I scroll down here and I go to headers, look, here are all this group here, all of these headers are all the ones that are in that gallery that I just looked at. This is where they're stored. Or again, footers. Here are all the different footers that are in that one gallery. This is where they're stored. Okay. There's lots of difference of these. Again, page numbers, tables, okay, tables of contents, different types of text boxes, watermarks. There's all these things. This is where they're built and this is where they're at. Now, I could come here and just put them in. I don't have to go to that gallery. So if right now I want, let's do slice quote, I could grab that building block, say insert, and look, there we go. It's created that box right here in my document with the formatting, and everything is all good to go. It's reusable content. Okay, let me undo that. Whoops. Let me go back to that gallery again. Insert, building blocks organizer. Okay, there are built-in cover pages. Some of these are really nice looking. Let me pick one here. Let's see. Do I want? No, I don't want that one. I don't want that one. Nope. Nope. Yeah, that looks good. All right. There's a whole cover page. Oh, I forgot to hit insert. Oh, God. Hello. Where was that one? Okay, let's go with Ion Dark. Okay, insert. There we go. Now you got it. There we go. There we go. I've got a whole cover page right on my document with graphics already here and places to just basically click on and add stuff in. And voila. Built-in content. Okay, I don't even have to worry about how it was done, any sorts of that stuff. By the way, some of these building blocks do conform to what's going on with the design colors here. So notice if I change remember the color schemes I talked earlier? A lot of these ones, if they've got graphics in them, correspond to the theme you're using. So this one here, the color will change based on the color scheme that we're using. Okay, now let's say I want to create one of my own of these. There's lots of ways, lots of different things that I could do here. Let me do this. I'm going to do a cover page one. And let me zoom out here. This is a cover page that I've created for manuals at a previous job. So I've got a whole cover page here. And I want to turn this into a building block. Why not, why that instead of a template? Well, because this is something that I'm going to add to multiple documents. So I don't want to do this as a template because I don't want to keep adding other content after this. It just would be complicated. And I just feel like it would be easier to make this as a cover page that I can just easily convert to a building block and then just bam, just put it in whenever I need it. So the basic process to creating one of these is basically just highlight everything you want to turn into. Now, again, it could be a few lines. Building blocks can be anything. It could be a set of pictures. It could be a table. It could be a cover page. Maybe it's just a signature file. You can do whatever you want, but I'm just going to run you through the quick basic process of how this works. So I'm going to highlight what I want to convert into a building block. I'm going to go up to Insert. I'm going to go to the Building Blocks Organizer. Oops, I went to the wrong place. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. This is kind of weird. Sorry, I apologize. You're going to go to Auto Text. I know, it should be called Building Blocks. I get this, and see, even I got messed up here. Oh, no, sorry. Quick Part Gallery. Save selection to Quick Part Gallery. There we go. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Everybody does it. Let me do the correct steps one more time. All right. I'm going to edit that out, right? All right. This is what I want to turn into a building block. I'm going to go to the Insert tab. Oops. Insert tab, text area. Going to come down on this button to save selection to quick part gallery. All right, I'm going to give this a name, Scott's cover page. As far as the gallery, okay, now, if you're just doing a generic thing, maybe like a signature file or other stuff, you're just going to want to keep it at quick parts. Those are your kind of customizable, easy ones that you use all the time. But notice that there are other ones here. And because I know this is a cover page, I'm actually going to put it in the cover pages gallery. Okay. But you could very well put this in the quick parts and that still works just as fine. All right. I'm going to just leave this in the built-in category. That's fine. If you want to add a description, you can. Leave it in the building blocks file. If we got more complicated, you can create separate files. And I'm just going to leave the options the way they are. So I'm going to say OK. All right, so now that's officially added. Now let me come back over to this document. Okay, and now I'm going to insert that building block I just created. So I'm going to go to Insert, Building Blocks Organizer. All right, in my cover pages, there it is. There's Scott's cover page. I'm going to insert it. And there we go. Now I should have made some adjustments there. I just didn't take the time to do it, but you'll notice it inserted in here. Now, because of the colors changed, because of again, that takes us back to color theming. And notice that I've actually had set up that page to use the appropriate color themes. So the shading on the graphic and other stuff correspond, which is actually a good thing. Okay. So building blocks are, let me come back to my slides. Back over to my slides. I would put them in between, going back to this first slide, I would put them in between that AutoCorrect hack that I showed you and templates. Building blocks are any sort of content that could be just a few lines, some pictures, some graphics, a table, however much you want to store that's not an entire document, but more than a few words. So it fits kind of right in the middle there. Okay? All right, make use of those. I think they're great, especially, again, if you're especially, there's certain pieces of things you use over and over again. They're fantastic for that. Let's get to our last feature, and that is the Office Clipboard. And yes, it looks like I forgot to fill these out. Oh, I'm so terrible. So what is it? I think this was introduced in Office 2003. I don't remember exactly. There is something in Microsoft Office called the Enhanced Office Clipboard. Now, in Windows, we're familiar with the clipboard. We know what it is. We copy something to it, and then we paste it down to somewhere else. But the thing about the Windows-based clipboard is it can only store one thing. If I copy something and then copy something else, the first thing gets bumped off of there. Okay? So in Office, there is something called the Enhanced Office Clipboard. And I think it was Office, I want to say either 2002 or 2003. I don't remember for sure. I was going to look it up. But with the Enhanced Office Clipboard, you can collect up to 24 items and paste them whenever you need to. And the really cool part about this is that it works across Microsoft Office simultaneously. So if I'm putting stuff on this Office clipboard, maybe I'm grabbing stuff from a variety of web pages, and I've got Word and Excel open, you're going to have the same list of items available there. This is really cool. So why should you use it? Gosh, all of these come down to the saves time, don't they? Basically, instead of constantly going back and forth to copy something and then paste it, copy something and paste it, copy something and paste it, you can copy, then go to your document and paste, and paste in any order that works best for you. Okay, so yay, more time savers, right? Another reason, again, that I just mentioned, this Enhanced Office Clipboard actually works across the Microsoft Office product family. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, I think some of the other ones all incorporate the use of this. So as I'm collecting items, they're available in the other products as long as I've got them all open. So if I've got Word and Excel open right now, I can work in between them. Okay, so where do we find it? Let me come back over here to Word. And on my Home tab, the first section here is called Clipboard. Okay, and I think there's a difference between 2013 and 2016 where you find this. But in 2016, all I got to do here is that down at the bottom of the Clipboard group, there's a dialog box expander here. And I'm just going to click that, and that's going to activate the Enhanced Office Clipboard, and it opens up this panel. Okay, there are some options down at the bottom that you can turn this on. That you can set with this. If you really start to like this feature, instead of having to activate it all the time, you could actually turn it on so that it's on automatically every time you use one of the Office products. Or maybe you can set it so that it engages when you copy something twice. Okay, so you've got some options down there. But here's how this works. You'll notice because I've had Office open and I've been doing some copying and pasting in Windows, I've actually got a few things that have been collected here. But let me grab some other stuff from other websites. Let me just grab this stuff off of Facebook. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come over here to another document. Let me just grab this little piece of text here. Okay, so I've grabbed some text and things from a variety of places. Now when I come back over here to Word, notice all of those things that I've collected are all here in the panel, and it tells me where I was getting them from. So some of these are labeled with Word, some of these are labeled with websites, some of these are from other sources, okay? And each one of these has a little drop down over it. And I can either choose to just click on it and paste, or if I want to get rid of something off of the clipboard, I can just delete it. So let me come into my document here. Let's move this down just while I'm here. All right, let's hit enter. And maybe I just want to paste in some text. There. Ta-da, I want this piece. Okay, now I want that. Well, those are coming in kind of huge, but that's okay. That's because of the font that I had here. Let's knock our font back down. There, that's better. Maybe I want that piece of text, okay? Maybe I want this. And look, I can just keep clicking these things and I can just keep adding them over and over, okay? They'll stay on the clipboard. There, I just pasted a bunch of, I just got really obnoxious there and just pasted a bunch of stuff. All right, let's undo all of that. Now, again, the cool thing here is that this is available in the other Office products. So let me start up Excel, okay? And just give me a blank workbook. If I go to the clipboard here and click the dialog box expander, look, there's the same clipboard with all of the same items. Okay, so as long as one of the Office products stays open, the clipboard moves around. So right now, if I closed both of the Word windows that I've got open, I wouldn't lose my clipboard because Excel's got them. But if I close everything in Microsoft Office down, if I close down Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and Office is no longer running, then the clipboard's going to empty out. So as long as one of them is around, the clipboard, this Office clipboard, will keep getting passed around. And again, I can collect items from multiple places and then post them and put them into the documents wherever I want to go. Okay? So again, on the Home tab, in the Clipboard group, in the bottom of the box is the dialog box expander. Okay, I made it. 5 features in about 50 minutes. You guys have any questions? I haven't seen any activity in the chat window this time. That's pretty crazy. You guys are either absorbing it in or whatever, but you guys got any questions about any of this stuff? Need me to go back and show you something again? David, Julianne, or Tyler? I'm surprised. I'm really surprised more people didn't show up. Not that I'm disappointed that the 3 of you are here. That's great to see you all. Okay, well, it doesn't seem like there's very many questions. That's okay. I just pasted a link to a survey. This is the really important thing, folks. This is what I need the most as a Microsoft certified trainer. The link that I just pasted, please click that link. Please fill out that survey. It counts towards my Microsoft certified trainer certification renewal, blah, blah, blah. So if you would fill that out, I think you can do it anonymously. So you don't have, and you're not going to be added. And even if you put your name in, you're not going to be added to any mailing list or anything along those lines. Oh, yeah, exactly. Thanks, Julian. So if you guys would take some time to fill out that survey, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you found this valuable. Again, I think the next section, I'm going to create the next session for next week, probably either tomorrow or Friday. I'm probably going to do it on Tuesday of next week. If you've got some suggestions, please let me know. Tell your friends. I'd really like to kind of keep doing this every week, and I'll keep doing it as long as we've got good attendance, but I'm not going to waste time if people aren't showing up. But I'm hoping you're finding these valuable, finding some good stuff. Certainly appreciate some suggestions for future topics. And that's all I got. It's 8 o'clock here on the East Coast. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'll stick around for a few minutes. But otherwise, thank you, folks. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I hope to see you at a future session.